Welcome back, Wheel of Time fans, to Dan of the Red Hand. I'm Dan, and today we're going to do a non-book spoiler review of the season finale for Amazon's Wheel of Time series, The Eye of the World. Before we do, click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you're notified whenever I come out with new content. Again, this is a no book spoiler review, so there will be spoilers for the entire Amazon series, episodes 1 through 8. So if you haven't watched those, go watch them, then come back and watch this video. Nonetheless, let's get on to this with that cold opening. In this scene, you see Luther and Telamon, the male, speaking to Latra Pose Ducheme, who he calls the Amerlin seat, in this. And clearly in this, they are both Aes Sedai. As a matter of fact, Luther says, would you want to split the Aes Sedai down the middle according to gender lines? And she says, no, we think that your plan is too risky. If you go up there and you fail, he can corrupt, the Dark One could corrupt the power. But there's not another, they don't really get into what the other option is. Nonetheless, that is what they're talking about here. They're talking about the plan to go seal the Dark One away in his prison. She is clearly not on board, and the implication is that none of the women are going to help, meaning that it was only male channelers who went with Luther and Telamon to go seal the Dark One away. During that, yes, he did in fact corrupt the male side of the One Power, which is why you don't see male Aes Sedai nowadays and why they go mad. Their power is corrupted by the Dark One. It ends with him looking at his child and saying, today is the day when your father is going to make the world safe for you. And you see the window and you see what the Age of Legends actually is. Now keep in mind, this is 3,000 years before the story we're getting. And, the Amerlin actually says, hey, this could set us back thousands of years, which it clearly does, because this is a very advanced society, even by our standards in science, probably because they have both the science and the One Power working together to make the world better. So that is what the Age of Legends was, and it shows just how far we have fallen. So as with my other breakdown episodes, we're not going to follow the episode step-by-step linearly. We're going to follow each of the major plot lines as they happen, and we'll save the big one for the end. So we're not going to get to the Eye of the World till the end. We'll start with Faldar, where we get to see Egwene starting to pack up, and Perrin coming in and said, we can't follow them. We don't know where they went. It's just a terrible idea. Now, the cool thing about this is it shows that Perrin is still thinking things through. He's using his mind. He's actually playing kind of a voice of reason here. Nonetheless, we get out of that, and they're all sitting there going to talk to Min to see what she can see and what she thinks. And as they're doing it, she does have a vision. She sees Nynaeve burn out, which we see later in the episode, and she sees a table that has a bunch of soldiers start to have wounds. She has a vision of them having wounds and being dead, and that's when you hear the horn and alarms starting to blare. We cut away and we go to see Algamar and his company kind of walking, discussing the size of the Trolloc horde and how it's 10 times bigger than what they're used to dealing with. Nonetheless, he's like, I'm going to go to the Gap. Hey, Uno, Lord Yakamoto, I'm going to grab my personal guard. We're going to go to the fortress at the Gap. You guys know what to do. They both kind of look like, oh, really? It's go time. Okay. And Amelisa is still like, the Gap won't hold. So later on, it's Ori Algamar and his sister Amelisa is talking. She's putting on his armor, and he's like, you were right. You were right all along. We should have asked for White Tower assistance a long time ago, but now it's too late. I've got to take my people up there to try to defend this. She's like, it's not going to hold. The city's going to fall. He says, look, here's the deal. This is Tarwin'S. This is the last battle. It's not ours to win, but I'm going to go up there and do everything I can to keep them from crossing Tarwin'S Gap. You and the women do everything you can to hold the city. That is our job. We're going to send pigeons to all the other nations to let them know what's coming, and we need to give them as much time as possible to recount their forces. So we get to see Algamar and his group of soldiers, on horseback, decide to make a charge, and you're expecting to see kind of a battle, and you don't. You see them charge into the Tarwin'S Gap fortress keep there, which I thought was kind of a missed opportunity. I'll get to that later, because it kind of felt weird, like that wasn't supposed to be what happened. Nonetheless, we do that, and then you see Lady Amelisa in her father and grandfather's armor saying, hey, I want every, channeler that we have to be known that I need their help, to meet me, on the field of battle. Everyone else, start gathering up all the weapons you can. Don't leave anything behind. Let's get all the foreigners out of the city, but every, actual Shinaran who's here in Faldar needs to stay and help defend this city as long as we can. While the evacuation is occurring, you see Egwene, Nynaeve, and Perrin all kind of discussing on whether they need to leave or not, or whether they're going to stay. And Nynaeve's like, look, I came to bring you 4 Two Rivers folk back, and I've already lost 2 of you. I can't lose you 2 as well. And that seems to maybe have been the last word until Loyal comes up and says Lady Amelisa has just made a call for all channelers to go help her. And that's when it's like, okay, I guess we're staying. So we get out there and we get to see the actual fight at Tarwin'S Gap, where it's not sword against Trolloc, it's crossbow against Trolloc. So they are firing. It's actually a really sound tactic. Start cutting down those numbers as much as they can before they get to the wall. But they are pulling, one of those classic zombie things where they're just crawling over each other to get up to those arrow slits. And, eventually we get to see that Algamar is pinned to a wall with a Trolloc spear. I don't think his father's armor would have saved him from that either, so he is more than likely dead. The implication there is that they are overrun. Then we get to see in the field just in front of Faldara, with Tarwin'S Gap in the distance, Amelisa explains that they're going to link and that they need to open themselves up to her using their one power, and they do. And there's this cool little linking scene. I want you to notice that, you can see the one power being pulled through everybody, and clearly Nynaeve is the brightest, but not too far behind her is Egwene. They clearly have the most powerful, amount of the one power going through them based off of how bright the visual is of that. So you see that these other ones, they're kind of weak in the one power, but these two are definitely, these are Aes Sedai level channelers, especially Nynaeve, as we know from previous episodes. Amelisa even says, the power, the amount of power, which is very kind of true for somebody who went to the White Tower, trained up, but wasn't powerful enough to become Aes Sedai, is now feeling what that would feel like. And it's got to be pretty damn seductive. So as the Trollocs are coming up, she's continuing to pull more and more power through them, and she says, more, more. And you start to see, like Zahir's wife burned out, the other woman that came with them start to burn out. And she just unleashes lightning, basically just destroying, not decimating, because that has a different meaning, but destroying the entire Trolloc army that's coming up to them. But she's still channeling, and Nynaeve's like, it's done, stop. And she just says, I can feel everything, every rock, every, gust of wind. It's clearly a very seductive thing, and she's starting to burn out Egwene next. And that's when Nynaeve does something, I'm not entirely sure what. And let me know in the comments what you think she's doing here, because she takes on the brunt of that from Egwene and lets herself start to get burned out. But before she can truly get burned out, Amelisa does and falls over dead. And the reason I say before she truly gets burned out is you see each of them as they are truly completely burned out. They die and then they fall over. Nynaeve never quite has that dead look like these others do. So I think that she was on the brink of death. And later on we see that Egwene actually heals her. I don't know what implications that's going to have for her ability to channel later on in the series, but I'm really excited to find out. As these battles are taking place, Perrin is frustrated because he wants to help, and he's like, hey, Loyal, how can we just sit here and watch our people die? And Loyal, of course, in his very, not meaning this condescending, like, I'm in fact standing. And it's not meant to be condescending, but Perrin clearly takes it that way. This is bullshit, we got to do something. And Loyal says, hey, in my experience, if you want to do something but you don't know what to do, all you have to do is ask. So they end up going and finding Lord Dakota and Uno and saying, hey, how can we help? They're handed a pickaxe and like, help us dig this out. Well, what's in there? It's the Horn of Valyr. It's meant to call back dead heroes of the past to help fight in the one battle. We don't stand a chance without it. So big implications for that horn going forward, because as we see, Perrin sees Padan Fain out of the side of his eye, I guess that direction, sorry, and decides to go follow him. Well, it's kind of a ruse, because as he's following him, he hears fighting back in the throne room, and when he returns, he sees that pretty much everybody is dead except for Padan Fain and a couple Murdral, and Padan Fain is stabbing Loyal. Yes, that is with the ruby-hilted dagger. You see him sheath it later. And then he kind of discusses with him. You see him, he doesn't attack Perrin, and there's a reason for that, because he sits down and says, hey, you think I went to your small village every year because I got good business? No, I did it because you 5, not 4, are all Ta'Viren. The pattern's going to shape itself around you, and while Rand might be the Dragon Reborn, you also have a part to play. And maybe some of you will turn to the shadow. And that's when we get to see Mat Trimcothan walking into Tar Valon, again, looking very sickly, almost like he did when he had the dagger, but clearly he doesn't have it because Padan Fain has it. But the implications that maybe he's turning dark, we'll have to wait and see later on. Padan Fain continues to explain that that's why, they're all still alive, and, he kind of looks at the axe that Perrin has, and Perrin's shaking it, like it's shaking in his hands, and realizes he's not going to attack me. He still doesn't know what to think about the axe, and walks off with both the Horn of Valyr and that Shadow Lorgarth dagger. So major implications there, considering the fact that we just learned that that is a big item, the Horn of Valyr, and very important to the survival of man in this struggle. Now let's follow the real struggle of this episode, and that's Moraine and Rand going to the Eye of the World. Now they're in the Blight, and I really like the way they do this travel. It's very condensed versus what it is in the books, which is not a bad thing. Again, not as much time to spend on things here, but they get the major points across. This place is extremely dangerous. They come across a Borderland boy who's covered in fungus. Moraine even is like, oh, that's disgusting. And who knows how long he's been there. He's just like, everything here is dangerous. The flora, the fauna, even the air you breathe, according to the X-ray content, is basically poisonous. So you have to be very careful in this place. And as they're walking, she comes across and says, oh, this is a place where we can stop. And it's the 7 Towers of Malkir. And Rand's like, wait a minute, I thought that isn't this where Rand grew up? She's like, yes, it was taken by the Blight. It used to be, miles from here, but now it's significantly closer, which just shows the Dark One's hold on the world getting stronger and stronger because reality is kind of starting to break down. Nonetheless, they stop. Rand takes a nap, and you start to see the Blight vegetation crawl up onto his hand, and then he wakes up from his dream, only we find out it's not a dream. It's another, Dark One encounter where the Dark One stabs Moraine through the back of the face and has this really great interaction with Rand. What I want to point out about this interaction is the Dark One here is not lying to him. He's just planting seeds of doubt. He says, have you even touched the power? Do you even know how to use it? Do you have a plan? Last time you came with, 100 companions far more powerful than this one Aes Sedai you brought, and you failed then. You don't even know how to use this sword. What are you going to do? He even says, I didn't think it was going to be you, kind of putting him down as like the least spectacular of the group. He's like, I didn't think it was going to be you that's the dragon. Go figure. So Rand, nonetheless, stabs himself because he realizes it's a dream to wake up. He wakes up, and Moraine, just like in the dream, you had a dream. What was it? What happened? He's like, the Dark was there. What did he say? And Rand immediately says, I don't believe a word he said. Let's go. But clearly, Rand kind of does, because he starts asking Moraine about all the things the Dark One just brought up. Hey, Moraine, what's the plan? You always have a plan inside of a plan inside of a plan. What's the plan here? You thought Egwene was a Dragon Reborn, didn't you? Because you started to teach your channel. Can you teach me? And she's like, well, you'll get there. Here's a Tarwin'S, that'll help you. It's, hundreds of male channelers, put all their power into it. It'll increase your power 100 times full. It's like, okay, well, what do I do with it? Because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to channel. And she kind of says, when the time comes, it'll just happen. He's like, just that. Okay, sure. So he's got those seeds of doubt still going through him as they actually arrive at the Eye of the World. And he does say, wow, I recognize this place. This is familiar. And they go down and they get to the true Eye of the World, down inside of what almost looks like a mine. It's kind of dug out of the ground. And he says, I see myself fighting, talking to or fighting the Dark One on this symbol. And he goes down and touches the symbol, and he's in another dream world. Now, there's some great interaction here where they're flipping back and forth between the dream world and the real world with Moraine and the Dark One speaking. Now, we'll go through the Moraine one really quick, where she tries to channel at him and kill him, and he immediately, it looks like shields her. It doesn't look like cut off from the true sources. You don't see something getting pulled out of her. You see kind of that shield being put on her, similar to what she did to Logan. So I think she's shielded here, not completely severed from the source, not stilled or gentled. That being said, she puts a knife up to Rand's throat and is like, I will kill him if he goes to the dark. He's like, well, we'll have to see. He's kind of playing her, and I really love the actor here and what he's doing. So now we go into Rand's last dream sequence, where it is his idyllic world. I mean, he's back in the Two Rivers that he never wanted to leave. He's married to Egwene. They have a daughter, and life is beautiful. They're getting ready for another Beltane festival. He's supposed to be making lanterns. Matt's there, and obviously he's still in their lives and is good again. She's like, hey, he won't make the lantern, even though he says he will. And Rand starts to doubt that it's real, and he kind of doesn't get confirmation. She's like, no, I remember that. This is what happened with that tree we carved into it, our place in this life and the next. He's like, oh, it is you. But then the Dark One comes in and freezes everything in place and goes, it could be. This is the reality you could have. They haven't even explained to you your powers. You can make this happen. This can be your life. And as Rand's looking at his child, he's like, well, how do I make that happen? Dark One says, just open yourself up to the one power and just let it flow through you. Just let it happen. Very similar to what Moraine said. It'll just happen. So he starts to do that, and he's looking at this world. And Rand puts his hand down towards his pocket where that Tarwin'S is and starts channeling into it. And the Dark One's like, no, you can have this reality. You can make this real. And he goes, yeah, but that woman who doesn't care about being a wisdom or an Aes Sedai, that's not the woman I fell in love with. Then you get to see the Eye of the World, and he's holding up that Terran Grail in front of the Dark One and basically destroys him. Or so you're led to believe. But as the Dark One is fading away, you see him start to smile. And typically when you're dying, you don't just start to smile. This also breaks the floor beneath them, which later on, Moraine says is Quendiar. Rand says, hey, just tell them I didn't make it, tell them, whatever, because he wants to go off on his own and just not be around people because he doesn't want to go mad and kill everyone that he loves. Lan eventually catches up to her, and she's like, yeah, this is Quendiar. He's like, but I thought Heartstone, which is another name for Quendiar, couldn't be destroyed by anything, even the power. She's like, it's not supposed to be able to. I don't think this was the last battle. I fear this was the first. And that's kind of the end of the real episode there, but then you get another scene of these ships coming in it says, shore on the far west, of these ships coming up. And keep in mind that a couple episodes ago, Megan had said, hey, there's these ships disappearing in the west. I need to go investigate it. The implication is that this is probably what did it, because if you look at this fleet, these are not merchant vessels. This is a fleet of warships. And they have channelers that look really badass, who channel this huge tidal wave going towards the coast. And it just goes to set up probably a major antagonist for the next season. So there's kind of the breakdown on that episode. Let's get to some final thoughts real quick here. Overall, I like the episode, although it does have its issues. One, the lack of big battle. I think that whole idea of money might be the issue, because the CGI on the Trollocs didn't look that great when they were doing it, and there was that big missed scene where they could have had a big major force-on-force battle near Tarwin'S Gap that they did not do. It's clearly a missed opportunity there that I really wish I had seen. And lastly, on the bad, there was just something about Perrin, what they were doing with him. I don't know if I don't want to, because Marcus Rutherford's done such a good job with Perrin this whole season, but this was not his best performance, if that is what they wanted him to do. I just there was something about it that seemed a little off. But on the good side, most of the characters were very true to their actual characters in this episode, and the other acting was fine. It was great, actually, in some instances. I love the Moraine putting the dagger up to Rand's throat, because that is very true to the character. She will save the world in a heartbeat and sacrifice a person, and ends justify the means there in her mind. She's fine with that. This is not a Captain America situation. We will trade lives here if it means saving the world. Additionally, man, it just really, in the end, the Dark One and Padan Fain stole the show at the end, because they were just portrayed so well, and the way that they were given their exposition and telling you what's going on was just acted out beautifully. And then, of course, this force coming up at the end was a huge, oh my God. There was great suspense throughout the episode. There was a few WTF moments, and it left a lot of questions going on. Where's Rand going? He's all alone. Moraine, is she shielded? Is she, cut off from the true source forever? How's that going to work out? Matt, what's he doing at the tower? Perrin, is this fact that, he let Padan Fain go and didn't attack him with the axe, is that going to bother him later? Is Nynaeve going to be the same after being healed? There's all these, what happened to Loyal? He got stabbed by that Shadow Legoth dagger. So there's all these questions that still need to be answered that make me very excited to not only see the next season when it comes out, but also to continue to put out content and speculate going forward. So until next time, don't forget to click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you're notified whenever I come out with new content. And until I see you again, have a wonderful day.